Welcome to my channel. My name is Joseph Alai, and today I want to talk about signs and states. So, these are questions that have been coming up a lot lately in response to the videos that I've posted. And I want to start off with signs because I think it's the most simple. So, when we imagine something, when we impress something upon our subconscious mind by means of imagination or feeling or inner conversations, whatever the case may be, when we impress something on our subconscious mind, if we do that successfully, it will manifest in this world. But in the meantime, there's something that the Bible talks about, that Neville Goddard talks about, and something that I've experienced countless times, and those are called signs. So, my definition of a sign would be something related to the manifestation, but not the manifestation, and something that is out of ordinary of my general and standard awareness or day-to-day life. So, um, I'm going to give you an example. Um, I had spoken about a story in one of my earlier videos where I was imagining for someone who was not doing so well. Okay, they were um, they were using drugs and alcohol, and they had been doing this for about 9 years. And this whole time, I wasn't thinking about using my imagination. It wasn't coming into my attention, awareness. And so, but at a certain point, I realized that I had not imagined for this person. So basically, I had been notified that that they weren't doing so well. There was nothing crazy happening. Nothing really crazy happening. But what I did was I created a scene that would, in my mind, mean that that person was doing very well. So I imagined that he was wildly successful, super happy, and I felt so happy, and I was giving him a hug. And so I took that scene because that would be considered the end result, right? I took that scene and I laid down in my bed and I felt that feeling of that wish being fulfilled. And I felt such a strong sensation, almost like a burning love and an excitement within me. And then I let it go. I literally did this scene for like 10 seconds. And the next day, I got a phone call and he was found in a gutter. He was okay, but he was very intoxicated. He got picked up by the police and it wasn't looking so good, right? But that was a sign because that was the most extreme thing that had happened and it was out of the ordinary and it was something that had to do with something that I imagined, right? Because another thing is that when we impress something upon our subconscious mind, if we imagine something, it must be recreated in our awareness, and and so that was a sign because although it was something for the worse, it was something different, and I knew right away that it was a sign. And if I had no idea about these teachings, and if I had no idea what I was doing, if I had maybe prayed and then I'd seen something like that, I would have thought to myself, "Wow, that is the worst case scenario. This stuff doesn't work." However, knowing that it was a sign, something slightly out of the ordinary of my regular awareness, my regular day to day, and something related to my manifestation, I persisted in knowing that that was just the beginning of the chain of events, or somewhere in the middle of the chain of events of the happy ending. Um, and what ended up happening was that bridge of incidents had wound him up in treatment, and he's been sober ever since, which is a miracle, right? That's what we're talking about here. And that's a very big thing because I'm very close to this person, and it's not small. And all it took was a few seconds of imagining for this to unfold. So that is considered a sign. And then I have one other that I want to tell you, and that is my friend Sal. This is my manifesting partner, someone who runs the group with me. And she was imagining a successful business, and she had a part-time, or she had a full-time job somewhere else, and but she was imagining that she had more orders to fill than she could even handle. And she got called into the office at her job, and they cut her hours drastically down to 1 day per week, which was, that's only like 20% of her income. And normally, if she was not aware of what signs are, if she was not aware of manifestations and how they unfold, that was another thing. She would have panicked and said, "This doesn't work, whatever." But in the end, her business took off, and she's very successful in that now. So these are two examples of signs, and I hope this really helped you understand this. And now I want to talk about states. So another, Neville talks a lot about states and how, we enter into states, we consume states, we fall into states, we fall out of states. And a state is basically a combination of, it's like a character type or a desire for fulfilled or a desire in general. So if I am the person, so say I was someone who's impoverished and I wanted to be rich, the state I would be in currently would be an impoverished state, and the state that I desired to be in would be a wealthy state. Um, or it could even be something like a happy state or a sad state or um, a state that I live in California and there's a different state, someone lives in New Jersey, um, or a state being a job, like I'm in the state as a software engineer, but I could be in a different state as a business owner. So states are loosely used for a specific frame in time. One more example, just to drive it home, would be like I'm in a state right now at my house, but a different state would be in my car, right? So states are, like I said, loosely used, and we go in and out of states. It could be emotional states, it could be political states, it could be uh, job states, whatever the case may be. But so it is, the question has arisen, like, how do we enter into the state that we want? And I feel like there's a confusion that people have to switch. They have to move themselves into another state. But the thing is that we of ourself, right? I of myself can do nothing. And it's only the God inside of me that can do this. And that's the same for everyone. There's no one that can do anything at all in this reality, not physically, nothing, unless they use the God within them, right? They're, the only things that can be done to change a state are to change the assumptions of self or to imagine that we are someone else. So I'll give you a couple examples of how to change a state, right? To change a state would be simply just to imagine that you were someone else than you are right now. And when I say someone else, I don't mean a different person altogether, as in I used to be Joe, but now I'm James. What I mean is I used to be sitting at this computer. Now I'm sitting in my car. Or I used to have 1,400 subscribers on YouTube. Now I have 5,000 subscribers on YouTube, right? So there's a couple of different ways to do this, and it depends on what it is that we're doing. So if we want to change someone else's state, if we want someone else to be different, we really, what we're doing is changing our own state. So we could bring into our mind's eye a scene that would embody them as a different person, and what that would be doing is changing their state, right? So for a second, that, and then therefore a bridge of incidents would unfold and it would bring them into a different state. If I wanted to have a different attitude, I could imagine myself with a different attitude. If I wanted to have those 5,000 subscribers, I would imagine a scene which would embody me having those 5,000 subscribers. I would bring it to my mind's eye, imagine it, and let it go. And a bridge of incidents would unfold, and I would move through a series of states to get to that state, whatever it would take to get through that state. And I think the confusion comes when it comes a lot to people, right? To manifest another person, we need to feel like we are with them. We need to, and that's not always true, right? Sometimes, yes, we will need to feel like we would if we were with them. But another thing we could do is imagine that we are telling somebody else that we are in that state, right? So one of the ways to do it would be to imagine that I was in a relationship with a specific person, right? To feel that feeling of the wish fulfilled, as if I am married, or I am in a relationship, or I have that ring on my finger, and that's one way to do it. But another way to do it, which sometimes I feel is a lot simpler, is to literally um, have a conversation with someone. Hear yourself telling someone that you are in that state, right? So literally, something I would do is imagine that I would be on the phone with a friend and just simply tell them, yeah, I'm in a relationship with such and such, right? And it works every time, both ways. So if you're having a hard time feeling as if you are the person, there's other ways and methods that you can use to enter into the state of your choosing. So, this was something that it took a while for me to understand, but literally, there are so many different ways to move from state to state. There's so many different ways to imagine. There's so many ways to feel the feeling, which is what we want in the end. And so, anyway, this is a little bit on what I had to tell you about states and signs. So, if you liked it, please click the subscribe button, click the bell icon, go to the website Sovereign Mind for more information like this. And thank you, and stay tuned for the next video.